Okay, everybody, let's do this program. This is in chapter 5. Write a program to print I am a superhuman being 10 times and print now it is true 1 time. Let's do that. So I want to print out the string, right? I will just make it into a string. Okay, I am a superhuman being. Make it into a string. And I need to print it 5 times. Very obviously, we need to use a loop, a while loop. Okay, so how do we do that? When we do a loop, we need several things. One, we need to initialize a loop control variable. I'm going to call it I, and initialize it to 0 because we haven't done anything yet. So, well, the loop control, the Boolean expression is that we start at 0, we want to reach 5. So while I is less than 5, we will continue to do this, right? So, and we simply print out that string. Okay, now I will run this and let's see if we are correct. And if you look at this, it keeps printing and it's running right here. You can see it's red. So it keeps printing because this is an endless loop. I'm going to stop it. It's also called an infinite loop. The reason is that we have I starting at 0 and we print it out. We never incremented I. Okay, so I is always a 0. That's why it becomes an infinite loop. Now we update the loop control variable, it's correct. And we also need to print out. Now it is true, right? So let's do that. Now it is true after you say it many times. Let's run. And so now it's correct. Okay, so in the lecture notes, I talked about loop control variables, initialize it correctly. For example, if you initialize it to 5, this will not run because 5 is not less than 5, right? So make sure your loop control variable is initialized to the correct value, and also the loop control condition is correct. If you do this, I is greater than 5, it will not run because it's not greater than 5. Your I is a 0 here. So the condition is not true, it will go to the next statement. Okay, that's the Boolean expression. And always make sure you update your loop control variable, either increment or decrement. Okay, so of course you know you can do this, initialize it to 5, and say I is greater than 0. This will do the same. However, you need to change this. Okay, if you don't change, you can see it just keeps going again, right? It becomes an infinite loop. So the reason is I becomes 6 and 7 and 8, it will not work. So you need to decrement. And now it's correct. Okay, so that's that. Let me just go back to that. Okay, greater, less than 5. And this is I plus plus, right? Okay, so I will do something else just to show you how this loop works. What if I take away these curly braces? What will happen? If I take them away, you will see it becomes an infinite loop again. Why is that? Because without the curly braces, the block statement, this is the only statement that's bound with this while. So this statement, even though it's there, it looks pretty, it's formatted correctly, but it doesn't belong to the while. It doesn't belong to the while loop. It's an independent statement. Okay, so that's why this will not work. Because there are two statements. You need to have the curly braces to make it into one. So the curly braces, they are really like ropes. They bind something together. Okay, so now these two statements becomes one. Another thing you need to pay attention is never accidentally put a semicolon there. If you accidentally put a semicolon there, you will have this problem. Let's run. Nothing happens. And why? It's running, but nothing happens because this is, again, an endless loop. I need to stop it. Okay, this becomes an endless loop again because this is an empty statement. So the loop body for this while loop is an empty statement, a useless statement that does nothing. And so these two statements are never reached. They are never executed. So even though a semicolon looks very trivial, but it's extremely important because it is a statement. Okay, so make sure you remember that. Let me stop and see what no, I don't need to stop, right? I can see what we need to do next. Okay, the next thing, instead of 10 times, after the user, what? Instead of 10 times, after the user, how many times ask? This is ask the user how many times and print that many times based on the user input. If the user enters 0, you do not print anything but exit the loop. Okay, so now instead of saying 5, we need to ask the user how many times. So if we want to ask the user how many times, we need to get user input. That means we need a scanner object. New scanner. Okay, and we need to import it. So I'm just being lazy. I will just do this, double click to import. Okay, it's imported. And we are getting a user input, so we need another variable to accept the user input. Okay, so now let's give the user instruction always, okay, how many times? I will just write very succinct, very straightforward instructions. For your program, please make it very polite, very friendly, okay? So we need to read from the user scan.nextInt, right? That's how we read. Okay, so what we can do is instead of 5, we will say number, right? Okay, so, oh, what did I do? I is less than number. Okay. Okay, let's run. How many times? 5. Okay, so let's run it again. How many times? 10. Okay, so this is all correct. Let me see what else I want to do. Okay, what else do we want to do? We want to do, if the user enters 0, you do not print anything but exit. Okay, let's come here and run. I think just now something, there is a glitch in the recording. But so here, if I run and I enter 0, nothing will happen. It will just print out this one statement, right? The loop will not run.